Happy New Year. Let's go for a drive. Welcome back and thanks for being here. My name is Scott and it's been a while since I've uploaded a video. Somebody suggested, hey, how about just a drive video? So let's do that, and I'm going to talk about my 8 years with my GTI. Now, before we get going, let me catch you up or remind you on some things about the car. Let's see, it is a 2017 GTI Sport that I bought in November of 2016. It has 237,000 miles on it. I have been APR tuned since around 15,000 miles. I think I replaced the clutch at 45 and then APR stage 2 at 70,000 miles. IS38 somewhere past the 100,000 mile mark. It still has original suspension, which is just astounding to me, but nothing is leaking. The car feels a little bit firm sometimes, but that could be because of the extra weight that I carry. My mechanic has looked at it and he says, hey, I wouldn't replace anything. Nothing's worn out. Everything is good. The alignment is still perfect. All of my mounts are original still. And I guess I got to say, that's one thing I like about the IS38 turbo is it doesn't peak and just scald the tires at low RPM like the IS20 did. And so I don't have a lot of excessive abuse to my motor mounts because the torque doesn't come on until later when I've got plenty of traction. Let's see, one surprising thing that's still stock is my alternator. I'm pulling a lot of current off of that alternator. I've got the secondary battery in the car and now I'm charging at 50 amps. And yes, the alternator is still original, so I'm very pleased with that. And so everybody who says, oh, you're going to kill your alternator with that charger, it hasn't done it. The electronics have been with the car for over 200,000 miles, and I haven't killed my alternator yet, so I've been very pleased with that. Other stock things, no replacement paint, so nothing's been repainted, no body damage, nothing like that. Everything is like that is original. All right, well, let's see how this goes. Believe it or not, I don't shoot a lot of videos of me driving down the road. I honestly don't remember if I have any. If I do, it's not much because it's actually kind of difficult to talk to the camera, drive the car, maintain situational awareness around me and everything. What are we going to talk about here today? 8 years in this car. Now, my 8-year anniversary was actually on November the 11th. This is a Veterans Day car. So why did I not release a video on November the 11th? A little bit of it was procrastination, but I also had an issue with the car that I wanted to see if I could resolve before releasing a video. And it took just a little bit more time than I was anticipating. And that's okay. So the issue, I've got a hard start, warm start issue, and it's intermittent. There's no rhyme or reason to when it happens. It just sort of happens. I'm here at a traffic light. Let me give you a quick demonstration of what it does. So I'll give you a dash view of this. It shouldn't be too exciting or anything, but I'm going to go ahead and push the button. And that's what it does. Or I'll get you over here to the tachometer. Usually it does this like 2 or 3 times and then it rumbles to life. There, a couple little stumbles. Now let's see what it does. All right, so that was it. I can't do it on demand. So I was lucky enough to capture it in a recording once, and I posted that to see if anybody had any comments on what the problem was. And I don't have any good feedback. Some people think it might be a high pressure fuel pump or maybe a low pressure fuel pump. Again, it's all over the place. My mechanic, who is very experienced with Volkswagens, he's never seen it, so he hasn't been able to give me any insight either. And of course, we're not going to throw a bunch of money at parts just because. And so I got to just drive the car until the thing actually fails hard, and then we know. We find something that certainly doesn't work and we'll be able to get on top of it. But just replacing parts just in case it doesn't make any sense. So here we go. We're just going to keep on rolling with it. Later, the what's it called? The fuel pump, the suction pump recall from Volkswagen came out, and I was a little hopeful that that would resolve the problem. So that was another reason why I didn't do the video right away. I had the recall done, and it didn't take me very long at all to figure out that, all right, well, darn, that didn't fix my problem. So that didn't solve anything. Let's see. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, I'm basically driving you to the location where I do most of my ham radio operating. And so it's a nice little drive here. I hope this is going well. It seems to be going well. I got to sync up my face footage with the outgoing footage from the front of the car. Hopefully it'll all work out well. And then let's see what else happened. Over the year, last year was a really good year. I did another trip to Hamcation. That went well. Not quite as many visitors as I had in 2023, but I did still enjoy it. And I did not make it to Rars Fest this year because that was the same month or week as the solar eclipse. I drove to Texas to witness and photograph the solar eclipse. If it was a matter of just looking at the solar eclipse, I don't think I would have driven all the way to Texas just to see it. I wanted to photograph it. And then of course my family is there too, so I got to see my family. I'll share a few photos of my eclipse shots. They are, I'm not going to claim that they're professional quality. I know a pro could have done way better than what I did, but I think they turned out pretty well. I got the diamond ring, although not necessarily as crisp and clear as it could have been. And I think the Bailey's beads turned out pretty good. And this is especially true when you consider that I had to reacquire the sun and get everything lined up again between the clouds, because there's a lot of cloud coverage in and out. So every time the clouds covered the sun, when the clouds cleared, I had to find the sun again. So that was one of my challenges, was reacquiring, reframing everything to continue to shoot. So I think I did pretty good considering all of that. Let's see, I mentioned your Rars Fest. I will make it to Rars Fest this year. Hamcation, no, don't count on seeing me at Hamcation. I have some things that I need to do, and Hamcation is an expensive trip, and so this year I don't want to have that expense. So no Hamcation this year. Rars Fest I will do. That one there is an easier trip. I can get to Rars Fest in about 4 hours. I missed last year. I want to make it this year, so if you want to see me and you're within a drive of Rars Fest and are going to go there anyway, I'd be happy to see you. Come on by and say hello. Let's see, new mods to the car. I have been very happy with the car. Nothing really too substantial to report. I have these, because of the extra weight that I carry in the car, I have what's known, I've got a little bit of squat in the back, and that's always bothered me just a little bit. And so what I did is I put these little spacers known as reverse rake spacers. They are by Emmanuel Design. What they do is they take care of the squat in the back. So they lift the rear end up by about 1/2 inch, and that is perfect. It puts the car exactly where I want it to be. Here's a side-by-side of the two. Very, very subtle, but just enough to put the car back to level without there being a little bit of a squat in the back. I am carrying more gear in the back, so I don't know if you can see the tool cases behind me. I think you can see the refrigerator behind me. The refrigerator's in the car full time, has been for a couple of years now, and I have tools behind me, either tools or radio equipment, coaxial cable, adapters, connectors, little tools and widgets to fix things on the road. If I have the tower on top of the car, which that's coming up here pretty soon, then I carry everything I need to bring the tower down if I need to replace or repair something on the road. So I carry everything I need to maintain that tower and fix a problem if I have one. So with the extra weight in the car, I wanted to bring it up just a little bit to keep it level. And so that reminds me, that's something else that I've done back here in the past year, is now I've switched my tool cases from whatever it was that I had before. Now I've got these build up, I think it's called Build Out. It's by Husky. And so these are stacking cases. So I bought an extra one. So the lid, there's a lid screwed to the floor behind me, and then all of my other cases are able to stack on top of that. So everything stacks nice and neat. I like it. I don't have to strap it down, but oftentimes I do. It's depending on where I'm going to drive. If I'm going to drive on Tail of the Dragon, then yes, I do strap everything down to give it a little bit more stability, but for the most part, I don't have to strap anything down. Oh, let's see what else is going on. Problems with the car. I mentioned the warm start issue. Let's see, earlier this year, I want to say about 3 months ago, I did a coolant flush, which was my second coolant flush. And so I did, my very first coolant flush was at 115,000 miles. That was when I replaced the thermostat and water pump. They finally did start to leak. I had a leak that I had reported early in the car's existence, but it was such a slow leak that I even had a video that said, hey, is it really a leak, or is this just a little bit of, I hate to call it consumption, but evaporation or a drip someplace, whatever it was, it seemed really minor. We couldn't see it leaking from anywhere, under the car, behind the engine, under the engine, just couldn't see anything. But after the big trip to California and back, that was what it finally took to be bad enough to spot it. So now we see the coolant on the street shield under the car. Now it has to be addressed. So we took care of that at 115,000 miles. Obviously a coolant flush at that point. And then I drive on for another 100,000 miles. So I decide, the coolant bottle's looking a little gray, a little yucky inside. And so I decide, all right, let's do another coolant flush, replace the bottle, because it was so much better than to try to clean it out. Now, mind you, I did not have a milk shaky mess in there or anything like that. It was just that fluid was a little on the yucky side. So we go ahead and flush that out. That was about 3 months ago. And then it wasn't even 2 months go by, and I'm looking at my bottle one day and I'm like, man, that looks kind of nasty again. How did that happen? So I go back to my mechanic and say, hey, what do you think of this? And he looks inside, and he had said 2 months ago that I don't know what it is with these Mark 7s, but they just get this stuff in the bottles, and it's not oil, it's just some sort of sediment in there. So his best thought at the time was that the flush that he did 2 months ago, maybe it knocked something loose or worked a bunch of stuff loose. Mind you, he does not run chemicals through the coolant. Water only, never, ever, ever any chemicals, because he doesn't want to damage anything in the engine. So water only. So his recommendation was flush it again. Now this time I didn't want to pay him to do that again. So I just said, all right, tell me what you did, because I know you did something easy. I know I can do this at home. So he showed me what he did, and his method, it's not too far off from what Charles, the humble mechanic, does. I put a water supply up high, and then that feeds into what you do is you disconnect the discharge from the engine to the coolant reservoir. You hook up a water supply to the coolant reservoir. With the cap in place, there is a suction on that, and then the discharge from the engine, you send that into a collection bucket on the ground. Oddly enough, even with as nasty as my coolant reservoir looked, only clean coolant came out. There might have been a little bit of residue in it, but not really much. It was a little discolored, but not a bunch of junk in it, right? So I flushed that out. Back when he flushed it 2 months ago, he said he ran through over 10 gallons of water to get everything out clean, because he will just flush it and flush it and flush it until it's perfectly clean coming out. I only needed to run about 6 gallons through. Actually, by the time I was ready to switch it all back and start putting coolant back in, probably only 4 gallons that I run through it, and then I started adding coolant back into the mix to get everything topped up. I replaced the coolant reservoir. So here's the thing with that. There is already, even just a day later, I swear there is just the tiniest bit of an oil sheen on top of the coolant already. I think this morning when I took a look inside the reservoir, I think I saw a little brown ring around where the top of the coolant level was. But of course, now that the engine's all warmed up, that brown ring is kind of dissolved in there and I can't see it anymore. So I'm going to wait probably a week when there's a little bit more in there, and then I'm going to say, all right, here we go. I think I've got an oil sheen in there. Meanwhile, I have taken a sample from the coolant reservoir, and I'm going to send that off to Blackstone Labs. I want to see if they tell me there's oil in it. What are they going to say is in it? And if they say there's oil in it, or if I see a clear sheen on in the reservoir next week, then what my plan is, I'm getting ready to pull off here to my operating position for a ham radio. So if there is a sheen in there, or if Blackstone tells me that I have oil in my reservoir, then yeah, I'm gonna then take the car back into him and say, hey, I want to do a compression test and leak down. So compression and leak down. I know there's a lot of people that are curious to know what's going to go on there. They're curious to know what my car looks like after 237,000 miles. It's possible that I have caught the car at the onset of a head gasket failure. And I don't think that's terribly bad at 237,000 miles on a tuned car. Let me say, I got to preface that because I know that all the Toyota folks out there, and maybe other import makes, are going to tell me, oh my God, I can't believe it. Your 8-year-old car already needs a head gasket. Well, anytime you up the ante on performance, things may be more subject to being broken, especially when you're operating outside of the design parameters. The engineers designed this car around 235 horsepower, and I am near 400. So yes, given the fact that I have increased the output of this engine by so far, I think it is fantastic the way it has lasted. Let's see, coming up next, I do have a little milestone coming up here soon. Here's a picture I'll flash up here. If you're following my Instagram account or my Facebook account, then you've seen this photo and you know what it represents. I will be sharing a video about that soon. What else? I'm gonna do a long-term review of my IS-38. I've been looking at that lately. If I had to rebuild this engine or replace the head gasket, would I replace the turbo or do anything differently? I think I'm going to make a video about that. Things have been changing on my ham radio setup a little bit. I know that you guys aren't all here for that, but I'm getting more hams on my channel. So here's a picture of what I'm doing here lately. VHF contest coming up here in just a couple of weeks. I'm planning to participate, but if I need a head gasket, then probably not. We'll see how that goes. My daughter's coming home soon. She's left the Marine Corps and has been in school. She's going to work on Harley Davidsons, and hey, we know that they need work. So anyway, that's a little joke that we have. She and I go back and forth with stuff like that. It's just like Hondas versus Volkswagens, right? So yeah, let me know if you got any questions, things you'd like to see me report on. I hope this drive video was okay. It's I don't know how loud the road was, especially the Colonial Parkway. It's a little rough, so I'll find out in editing. So, all right, as always, I appreciate you being here, and I will talk to you again soon. Take care.